Hey guys, in the last episode, we started stripping this engine down, removed the exhaust manifolds. A lot of this was because we had lower compression in the one hole. I pulled the valve cover to make sure that we had good travel out of that one cylinder on the push rods, make sure the cam wasn't going flat. That was good. I suspect that we still have a carbon issue on one of the valves. I'm not going to worry about that now. But during our inspection, I pulled the intake off because I knew that the engine had been pressure washed and we found water in the knock sensor hole. So that knock sensor is no good. I don't see any corrosion on it, but I don't trust that there isn't damage already internal. If that water got inside the knock sensor, it'll cause a failure down the road. I don't see any water in the front hole, so I'm only going to replace the back one. I typically do them as a set, but they are kind of pricey, and since there was no trace of water in that front hole, I'm just going to do the back knock sensor. I'm going to replace the harness with a new harness that has 2 new rubber grommets, and then I'm going to do the service bulletin that will fix this issue so it doesn't happen again. And I'm just going to use the same engine cleaner I used on the engine bay. Now this stuff is kind of caustic, so I don't want to let it sit for too long on the bare aluminum, but it will clean up this grease. And then we'll attack it with a wire brush and then rinse it all off. I'm also doing the valve covers because I need to clean those anyways. To do the service bulletin, we have to have this all clean. So don't just put new knock sensors in it and replace the harness and call it good. Go ahead and clean all this stuff up while it's off. Now, I'm trying to be careful, make sure that none of this debris is going down in those holes. For extra protection, you can plug them up with rags or paper towels. Now I'm going to go grab a bottle with some water to rinse this stuff down. And now that most of that stuff is off, I'm just going to rinse it off with some brake parts cleaner. Now I can remove this again. I should have just left it in there to begin with and then removed it after cleaning that out. And now I'm going to change out this back knock sensor. Looks like a 22 millimeter or a 7/8. Now these should be torqued when you put them back in so that they operate properly. Yeah, you can see the corrosion started at the bottom here. There was water in the connector when I got it apart. Plus, I don't know how tight this seal is here. If water got inside of there, then this thing definitely won't work right. Make sure there's no water down in the bottom of there. This one's dry because I blew it out with the air. Don't put any sealer or anything on the threads. This does not go into the coolant passages like the older ones. And then the torque spec is 15 foot-pounds. Or at least that's what the little pamphlet inside the box says. Now this part here is a Dorman part. I typically don't use Dorman stuff, but I haven't had a problem with these knock sensor harnesses. They're quite a bit cheaper than the factory one. Just clip that in. And then we're going to seal the grommet in there. And these are pretty tight to go in compared to the old ones that came out. That's good. That'll help keep water out. So that is good. And now I'm going to show you how to do the the service bulletin that helps prevent water from entering there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put a bead of silicone around these holes. You don't want to seal it up against the grommet because you still want to be able to access these knock sensors in the future. If you have to change one out, you don't want to have to do this procedure twice. And we're going to leave an opening in the back. So that way, water, if it gets above here, can drain out. And this isn't the prettiest, but since I'm not a cake decorator, I don't think it matters much. So just like that, if water gets underneath the front section here, it'll go around the silicone, and then the foam piece in the back attached to the intake, we're going to remove that as well, but we're going to leave the one in the front to help prevent water from entering here. And since the engine leans back, if water does enter in here, it'll go right out the back onto the bell housing. Now the only bad thing about this is with that foam removed, you have a slightly higher chance of mice and stuff climbing in here and chewing up the wiring harness. But if you live in an area where you don't have that, then you'll be okay. Actually, I've only seen that once on any of these, and they actually chewed through that foam. I believe it was a chickmunk. So I have both of these with a almost full circle of silicone. Before I put the intake down, I will remove that foam from the back. Leave the one in the front. I'm going to let this set up and dry overnight because that front foam will contact the silicone here. Then I can put the intake back on and we'll just route these wires out the back and then back up to the top of the intake. Before I go tonight, I'm actually going to clean up these valve covers and the front of the cylinder head a little bit, and then maybe even the water pump and the accessory bracket. I'm just going to use aluminum wheel cleaner. All these parts are aluminum, they're not coated, at least on this engine. So I can apply this without worrying about stripping down a coating or messing up a clear coat. So I'm just going to spray this stuff So even though the coil bracket's going to cover this stuff up, this looks much better. The bits and pieces of aluminum that you will be able to see are going to be nice and bright, which is good. It doesn't look as much like a junkyard engine if it's nice and clean. There's some more stuff on the front cover that I would like to clean up. These I'm probably done with. I did go ahead and spray it with water when I was done to neutralize the acid that's in that cleaner. Just make sure not to get a lot of water down the ports. I said you can stick rags down there to soak it up if you want. Same goes for the exhaust side. I'm going to leave this here for tonight. I did rinse as much off as I could because I don't want that acid turning the aluminum black. I'm not sure if that type of cleaner will, but some acids will turn they're caustic enough that they'll oxidize the aluminum and turn it black. So you don't want that to happen. So spray it all off with the water when you're done. So tomorrow when I come in, I'll pull the rest of this wiring harness off, and then we can start doing some other things to this engine that are necessary to fit this into that vehicle. Mainly the oil pan and changing the mounts. That's it for this episode. We went ahead and changed that knock sensor out, put the new grommets in, the new pigtail, did the service bulletin to prevent future water from entering there, and I also cleaned up the valve covers. So if you are following this build from the beginning, thanks for watching today. If you are new, I have tons of other content before this, It'll all be in a playlist. I'll link that playlist down below. If you want to see the rest of the build, subscribe, click the bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.